Hello, friends and fellow VEDSies. Have you ever seen that Tumblr post that's like, therapists are just common sense filters? And then it goes on to describe the loopholes that therapists find for mental illness things, like, I don't have the energy to make a sandwich. You realize you can just eat all the components of a sandwich, right? Like, you can just have bread, and then eat cheese, and then eat meat. You don't need to put them all together. I always smile when I see that post because it feels like the exact opposite of all of those self-care posts. Like, I know what all of those self-care posts are going to say. They're going to tell me that I should be waking up earlier so that I have time in the mornings, and that I should be writing down all of my thoughts in a journal. Be sure to stretch, drink plenty of water, shut your electronics off an hour before you want to go to bed. Listen, I'm not trying to knock self-care posts because I actually do think that they give good advice, but I always found them a little bit grating. Like, if you just do these things, then your life will be better. I think that some folks feel the same way about like the body positivity movement, you know, where they feel like, I can't be positive about my body. And so the advice for them is often like, well, can you be neutral about your body? What I want is to be like neutral about self-care. But with all that said, there are a few little things that I found that help me and genuinely do make my life a little easier and a little better. They're all pretty much as basic as the stuff you'd find in the self-care posts, but they work for me. First up, we have micellar water. Listen, I'm just not great at regularly washing my face. I don't have a great like skincare routine, but the thing that I can do is take a little micellar water, put it on a cotton pad or one of those reusable face pads, and, you know, take off my makeup, get the oil off my face. It's a one-step cleanser. It feels just like water. I don't have to rinse it off afterwards, and I find that it helps me to take better care of my skin. Basically, it saves me from going to bed with my eyeshadow on. The second thing I do is something I picked up from some women in the office, and it's to drink hot water. I think that drinking water is much like flossing. It's one of those things that most of us probably aren't doing enough. And I will say that for me personally, sugary beverages are my vice. I love a nice mug of black tea with milk and sugar, but that sugar and caffeine adds up after a while. Pouring myself just a plain mug of hot water from the kettle has kept me warm in the winter times and saved me all of that extra sugar. It's been an easy way to get myself drinking more water. And yes, more water is good for you. Now here's a tip you've probably heard before. I like to take the time to make my bed. But the reason I like to make my bed probably does go against some of the advice that we're usually given. See, people will tell you that you really shouldn't do anything in your bed that isn't sleeping or sex. But my bed gets used for all kinds of things. Gets used for reading and movie watching and listening to music. My bed gets used as an extra storage surface. It gets used as just a place to sit and hang out. So I make my bed. It doesn't have to be perfect. Basically, I just pull the sheets and the comforter back up close to the pillows. But it means that I now have a surface where I can lay my books and fold my laundry and do all of those other things that aren't sleeping. And honestly, it just makes my room feel tidier. Like, the rest of the room could be sort of a disaster, but if the bed is made and pretty tidy looking, then it makes the whole room feel neat. Okay, what else? Do little things to customize your phone. So back when I did a mindfulness-based stress reduction course, I started to feel really in tune with what I was feeling, like just more aware of what I was feeling all the time. And I noticed that there was this tiny blip of anxiety every time that I checked my phone or opened my laptop. But I am a communications professional, and getting offline and getting off social media, not really an option for me, so I have to find other solutions. One of the things that I would recommend is using a ringtone that you actually like. Mine is the Grey's Anatomy theme. Also setting custom text tones so that you know just from the sound who's texting. So like, for example, when my mom texts me, I hear ding! And when my friend Teague texts me, I hear da-da-da. The other thing to be aware of is the accessibility features on your phone. So like on my iPhone, I can double tap with 3 fingers and it'll bring up a menu of accessibility options, which includes filters. Like, you can do a grayscale filter if you're looking to spend less time on social media, like things are less interesting when they're not colorful. And it also has a filter that's like a low light filter. So if you are using your phone late at night, like me, and you're worried about that blue light that everybody says is so bad for you, you can dim that down a little bit. And all of these things just make my phone a little bit friendlier to use. Like all the things on this list, it's a compromise. Like probably the best thing to do would be to like regularly set the phone down and not use it before bed and yada yada yada. But I'm trying to find a thing that's sustainable that works for my life. It's like exercise. Like everybody says, the best exercise routine is the one that you can actually stick to. Spoiler alert, I have not found an exercise routine I can stick to. And I guess the last thing that I do, it really is something to do with my brain, and it's to make dark thoughts funny. I notice that I have certain thoughts that my brain just automatically reverts to when I'm anxious or upset or sad or angry or whatever. So, for example, if I'm having a bad day, for whatever reason, my brain does like this little back and forth cheer, and it's like, what do we want? Death! And I mean, no, I don't. I don't know why my brain does that, but it's automatic. It just happens. And it's, you know, sardonic in tone, like even in my head. It's like, what do we want? Death. It's, you know, whatever. But I don't love that that's my go-to thought. But the nice thing about being the person that I am is that my brain is also always making new connections. It's always making new little neural pathways or whatever. And so you know what actually helped? It was a Game Grumps animated video. So some time ago, Danny and Aaron played this game, Super Troll Island, and it was terrible. It was properly atrocious and sort of horrifying, and Gritty Sugar Steph later made an animation of it. And at one point, Danny just says,
I know, dude. I'm having like a silent nervous breakdown.
Let me go!
That being said, I'm cool with death now. Playing this game made me happy to die.
And I just thought that was so funny. And so whenever now my brain is like, what do we want? Death. I just have Danny's voice in my head being like, be happy to die after playing Super Troll Island. It's sort of like in Harry Potter, how there are the Boggarts, and then you have to defeat them using the ridiculous charm, and it turns them into something amusing. It works pretty much like that. You can't cast ridiculous, but you can watch Game Grumps. So that's pretty much it. This has been a video marginally about self-care and self-keeping, but these are just small things that I tend to do that help make my life a little bit better. They're often not a full solution, they're just like a stepping stone to help me feel well enough to do the harder things that are actually going to help my brain long term. I think it's important to recognize that being healthy, being well, is hard. It is so much easier to be unwell. And sometimes we beat ourselves up for our coping mechanisms, but the truth is that if you have a mechanism for it, you're coping with something. And while your coping mechanism may not be perfect, it's often the thing that's helping you to not do something worse. Alright, I feel like I've rambled enough. If you want to know more about my thoughts on self-care and self-keeping, this video is actually based on something I'd written for my website earlier this year. So you can visit thedigitaldiarist.neocities.org and see a more complete list of things that I do to help make my life a little bit better, as well as some other people doing interesting things when it comes to self-care and mental health. As always, any relevant links will be in the doobly-doo. Thanks for watching, and I will see all of you tomorrow.